It was Tuesday morning, 3rd March 2026. In the heart of Klerksdorp's central business district, the day was beginning like any other. Shopkeepers were opening their doors, workers were making their way through the streets, people were preparing for another ordinary day. But somewhere in the city, according to police intelligence, a group of men was allegedly preparing for something very different. They were not preparing to withdraw money from an ATM. They were allegedly preparing to blow one up. And before they could do it, the police were already moving. The intelligence. The operation began with information received by the Hawks Tactical Operations Management Section. The intelligence pointed towards a planned ATM bombing in Klerksdorp's CBD. For the investigators, there was little room for hesitation. An ATM bombing was not simply a property crime. It could involve explosives, firearms, vehicles, and innocent members of the public caught in the middle. The information was quickly assessed and operational teams were mobilized. Among those brought into the operation were members of the SAP's Special Task Force, the Hawks Tactical Operations Management Section, and other role players. The objective was simple: find the suspects before the explosion happened. The interception. Early that Tuesday morning, the operation moved from intelligence to action. 7 suspects were intercepted in Klerksdorp. They were between their 30s and late 50s, and police alleged that they were preparing to bomb an ATM in the CBD. There was no successful ATM bombing. No explosion tore through the streets. No ATM was destroyed. Instead, the suspected operation ended with handcuffs. And then came the discovery that showed investigators just how serious the alleged plan was. Police recovered 1 rifle, 1 pistol, and explosives. The weapons and explosives were secured as evidence while the suspects were taken into custody. For the officers involved, the significance of the operation was not what happened. It was what didn't happen. The court case begins. The 7 suspects were initially expected to appear before the Klerksdorp Magistrates Court. 2 days later, on 4th March 2026, the Hawks confirmed that 6 of the accused had appeared in court. They faced charges including possession of unlicensed firearms and ammunition, possession of explosives, and conspiracy to commit an offense. Their matter was postponed to 12th March 2026 for a formal bail application. The 7th suspect was not named in that particular SAPS update. A crime stopped before it started. What makes the Klerksdorp case particularly striking is the narrow window between intelligence and intervention. The police did not arrive after an ATM had been destroyed. They did not arrive after an explosion had injured somebody. They did not arrive to investigate a crime scene covered in debris. They arrived before the alleged plan could be carried out. That distinction matters. According to the police, the Hawks intelligence allowed the Special Task Force and its partners to move quickly enough to intercept the suspects and recover the alleged weapons and explosives before the planned crime was committed. For the people walking through Klerksdorp's CBD that morning, there may have been no indication that anything was wrong. They went to work. They opened shops. They walked past ATMs. They continued with their ordinary lives. And somewhere behind the scenes, an intelligence-led police operation had potentially prevented an explosion in the middle of the city. ATM bombings have become a persistent challenge for South African law enforcement, often involving organized groups equipped with firearms, explosives, and vehicles. But the Klerksdorp operation demonstrated another side of the fight against these crimes. Sometimes the most important police operation is the one the public never sees. There is no dramatic explosion, no getaway, no burning vehicle, no destroyed ATM, just intelligence, planning, rapid interventions, and arrests. The suspects would now have to answer the allegations before the courts, where the evidence against them would be tested. For investigators, however, the work was far from over. The explosives would have to be examined. The firearms would have to be traced. The suspected vehicle and the movements of the accused would have to be investigated. And perhaps most importantly, investigators would have to determine whether the 7 men were acting alone or whether they were connected to a larger criminal network. Because the question was no longer simply, who was planning to bomb an ATM in Klerksdorp? The bigger question was, who else was behind the plan? And that investigation had only just begun. The ATM bombing never happened. But on that Tuesday morning, the police had already found what they believed they needed to stop it: the suspects, the weapons, and the explosives before the first blast.